Now that you know that you want to pursue a job at the United Nations, let me talk to you about where you should get a job. The duty station. The UN classifies 6 separate duty stations from H to E. So H, A, B, C, D. Now, there's a reason why. H is headquarters. So basically, this is your advanced developed nations. This is Canada, US. You're going to have Europe, like Switzerland, where there's a lot of UN agencies, France, Australia, and Japan. This is basically a place you could live in perfect safety. You have a lot of advantages there. It's an advanced nation. You're going to have high education for your kids. You're going to have an ease of life, systems, no terrorist attack or stuff like that. It's very secure. There's no issue living there. This is a place that most people try to immigrate to. So these are those. Now, they're very tough to get into because everybody wants to work in New York, for example, or everyone wants to go to Switzerland or Montreal. So this is a bit of a challenge. Now I'm going to talk to you about the others that are more likely, and then we're going to conclude that with what's the benefit, the pros and cons about them. A duty station all the way to E. Now I'm going to give you the difference right now, and then we're going to talk about these countries and we deconstruct them a little. So A is basically a country that it's safe, okay? It's not as advanced as E. There's some issues, like for example, Philippines, Thailand, Jordan, something like that. It's not as prestigious or as nice or as safe, for example, as Canada, but the salaries are high. It's not a hard place to live in. Actually, might be even easier because you can have very beautiful home for very, very cheap, and the cost of living is very low while your salary will be higher. So this is a bunch of countries that a lot of people want to go into. B and C, it varies. It's not like a war zone. It's not that risky to live in, but it's also not that easy. It might be less safe. You might have some issues with the government, corruptions issues. So basically, Lebanon, for example, used to be an A, but because of the issues with the government, the corruption, and also the fact that they had, the explosion at the port and some other import-export stuff, their currency going down, now they're a C. Then you have the D and E. D and E are basically your duty station where you cannot bring your family. These are, war zone, like Afghanistan and Gaza and Iraq, stuff like that, Mali, where you have a lot of conflict. Syria would be in there too. Why in the A I have some little thing going on? Why do I have Jamaica with a star? And why do I have Manila, Philippines in the A, and I also have Philippines in the E? Let me explain that. Sometimes the UN, for political reason, will separate it by specific areas. So Manila is A, but Mindanao Island, where you have the Abu Sayyaf and terrorist attack and stuff like that, then that's going to be an E. So it's very dangerous to live in Mindanao, but it's very safe to live in Manila. I used to live there. No issues. Now, why is Jamaica with a little star? Well, because Jamaica should be exactly the same way as Philippines, okay? They're not because of political reason. It's a tourist country. The UN don't want to give a bad rating for that because then they would have to pay the staff more. I lived in Kingston, Jamaica. Honestly, Kingston should definitely be a C or a D, okay? It's a very tough place. It's extremely dangerous. It's very, very tough to live there. It's extremely costly for no reason. And yeah, I would put Kingston, Jamaica as an ED, whatever, and other places like Ocho Rios or Negril as an A. That makes sense. But the thing is, the UN organization in the capital. So yeah, that's the problem with Kingston. So anyway, you have to learn these things and check it out, because otherwise you might end up in a city, like I said, like Kingston, Jamaica, where it's considered an A and they don't give you all the benefit that you should have for living in a war zone, more or less. All right. So let's talk about that when we talk about the pros and cons right now. So what are the pros of living in an H duty station? Well, first of all, the accessibility to advanced services. Okay, so fiber optic internet. You're going to have Amazon delivery if you're in Canada, US, Europe. No issue. You can do a lot of things like that. In most cases, in most cities, it's super safe. The crime rate is very low. You have very, very highly ranked school for your kids. Very high level hospitals, no issue. You have a better chance of advancement because you may have 600-700 staff in an organization, so it's easier to climb up. as opposed to a small organization in a country office where you only have 20 people and the chances of advancement would. And then useful prestige. Now, let me talk to you about it. What does that mean? Well, for example, you manage to get yourself a post at UNDP in New York. Now, there are normally, let's say, 5 to 8,000 applicants for one post there. You're the one who got it. Wow. So people know that you actually are very good in order to have competed and gotten that job. People know that you work at the headquarters. So after that, if you want to work for UNDP in Africa, people know that you come from New York. You already know all the bosses and everybody there. That is really following you throughout your career. And I'm not joking. If you work in a few headquarters in very prestigious job like this, well, then people will know, and that's going to facilitate getting more job and continue your career and increase your, career level. Then let's talk about the con. Well, the housing, the food, the services might be more expensive, and that's for sure. Okay, so of course, living in New York, way more expensive than living in Amman, Jordan, for example. The domestic helper costs a lot of money. So if you're, for example, Chinese, okay, you might be used to have a massage a few times a week, go easily for haircuts and stuff like that. If, your spouse may enjoy life like that very easily in China or Vietnam, you have amazing food for very cheap. You're going to go to a restaurant all the time and it costs nothing. Now, if you end up in New York, then your prices of food and massage and everything else just skyrocketed. And it doesn't mean you'll be able to get that easily. A maid in the Philippines costs about $300 a month live-in. In New York, you're going to have to go with the laws. It's going to be about $2,000 a month. That's a lot of money. It's way different. You're going to have, in a lot of countries, the school for your children might be very expensive. I understand that the UN are going to cover most of it, but, they're way more expensive. You will not get any hardship allowance, of course, because there's no hardship per se. So you're not going to get extra money. When we're going to talk about the hardship allowance, that can go up to $15,000 more per year. It matters. A few thousand more a month also in hardship in certain areas, more home leave and stuff like that when you have hardship allowance. You're not going to get none of that if you work in Montreal, for example. And the last one, you will have limit on rent. So maximum 5 years. They're going to cover you 60% as I mentioned, but after 5 years, they will stop. This is to encourage people moving around. Okay, so once you have a rent at $4,000 a month in New York, and they cover, let's say, 2005, and then after 5 years, they cover nothing, then it's 2005 more out of your pocket immediately, then you might consider moving, and this is why in the UN, moving is so important. A duty station. This is by far my favorite place to live. You're going to have a very high level of school because you have international school. You're going to have very, very good hospital that are very good. And the price is not too expensive. Okay, it's reasonable. So this is great for that. The cost of living is much less expensive. It depends where. Of course, if you want to have a magnificent villa, it's going to be more expensive. But, generally, you'll be able to have way more space for way less money. That definitely for sure. You'll be able to have a helper. You live in Lebanon, you live in Jordan, you live in other places in the Middle East. You can hire yourself a Filipino for $300-400 a month. No issue whatsoever. The laws are really different here. The rental. So, for example, renting a house, a fully furnished place, it's more affordable. The UN will give you more money for rental as well in those countries. Then you're going to start having hardship allowance. Even though it's an A, you're going to start accumulating your years. As you move, the more step that you do, so the more move you do, the more money you get in hardship. Basically, you're going to be able to get that starting in the A duty station. Now, the disadvantage. While the country, the city can be a little less safe, of course. This is one thing and the social might be different also, the political issues, and it might be a different, more difficult life for some people. You will have less accessibility to high-speed internet and, deliveries like Amazon and stuff like that. That could be a possibility. In some countries, the weather condition might be very difficult. It depends. It might be completely unpleasant. Depends where you live. Surprisingly, Afghanistan, the weather is amazing. But now when you're going to end up, let's say, in Jamaica, and it's going to be like 30 degrees even in the winter, that could be tough for some people, like some Canadians. Basically, your living condition might be harder as well for your family. Yes, maybe you'll have cheaper stuff, so you'll be able to do different kind of activities. So if you teach, your daughter wants to learn piano, for example, then yeah, you might have somebody at $10 an hour to teach her piano instead in New York at 125. But also, you might be in a country with a lot less activities to do. It depends on which country you're in. Your utilities might be more expensive, might be less stable. It depends where you are in the world. All right, now let's cover D and E. This is probably the places where you might get jobs the easiest in the UN system, okay, for sure. What are the pros of that? Well, first of all, it's the highest hardship allowance in the UN system. You're going to have what they call rest and recuperation. So when I was talking to you about getting home leave, so you can have tickets for you to go back to your family every 2 years. Now you can get it every 6 weeks. So literally, you're going to be 6 weeks on, 2 weeks off, 6 weeks on, 2 weeks off. This is amazing. So you're going to have a lot less time working and more time outside. You're going to make money like crazy because generally you won't be able to have an apartment. You're going to have to live on the UN compound. So basically, you're not going to pay any rent. You might not even pay any food. There is nothing to spend your money on. So generally, you're going to be able to just rack up the money, put it aside, and, that's very good. A lot of people I know have worked there for 2-3 years, and they managed to, buy like 8 or 10 apartment buildings when they come out because they save so much money so quickly. Basically, the country and the cities are definitely unsafe. Okay, we're talking literally war zone here. There's a reason why you're not allowed to have your family here. You're going to have virtually no accessibility to things. You might have fiber optic, maybe not. You might have internet by satellite. It might not be that easy. The bureaucracy might be tremendously difficult. You might not be able to bring your own goods and stuff. You might have a lot of problem. It's disorganized. It might take you months to be able to import something. You will have some issues even with your own passport and things. They might not respect your UNLP. These things happen in those countries. Sometimes you have to travel in convoy. This is the type of things you might have to face. Now, the duty station, like I've mentioned, is a non-family duty station. Now, in a lot of cases, I know people, like in Lebanon, for example, people that are working for organization near the border, for example, with Gaza or with Israel. They, UNIFIL, for an example, they would work at UNIFIL, they would live there, and it's 4 hours from Beirut, so they would work there from Monday to Friday night. On Friday night, they would drive to Beirut, spend the weekend with their family, and then go back. Or they would fly and have their family living in a country not too far. This is possible, but it's rare. Generally, if your wife is, or whatever, you're from the US, your wife's going to stay in the States, and you're going to be working abroad. And then every 6 weeks, you don't come back. It's a sacrifice to make. Generally, you do this early in your career, but that's very, very easy to get in the UN this way because not many people are willing to do that. So that concludes the duty station, guys. We're going to talk about this at length, okay? Comparing, checking the jobs. I'm going to show you how to sort for those. We're going to discuss all this, and there's 18 more videos to go. So if you didn't subscribe to the channel, do it. Give me a like. That's going to help the channel grow. See you in the next video.